I see we have a new general manager for First Transit. Julie or Lori, do you want to introduce Matt? Is he with us today?
Sure. Matthew Finati is our new GM here locally with First Transit. Matt, if you want to give a little background on yourself, that'd be great.
You're muted.
Can't hear you. Technology. Uh-oh. Gonna put his headset on.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about
We
that.
can hear you, Matt.
Good morning to you all. So my name is Matthew Pinati. I am the general manager for First Transit. I've been with First Transit for 11 years. Started out as a driver in Minneapolis and worked myself into a dispatching position, training position, and all the way up to road supervisor and then to a safety manager. And then about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I applied for the operations manager position up in Fargo here. And I was doing that for up till when I was promoted as general manager with the company. I have a very good knowledge of transportation, fixed route and paratransit. And one thing that I realize is that this is all done by teamwork. Nobody can do this by themselves. So the team that is working with me and working with the city of Fargo people is going to be a big thing to make sure that all of us are successful.
Wonderful.
Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Matt.
He's been a great addition to our team. So, yep.
Great. Let's move on to our informational items. Like I said, we'll come back to our action items if we get an additional voting member. We'll go to 3A, which is a temporary service hours for 2023. Cole, Julie, and Lori.
Yeah.
Thank you. So over the last couple of weeks, MAPUS administrative staff has taken an opportunity to evaluate our current end times. Just kind of a bit of a background. Pre-2022, MAPUS did operate from 6:15 a.m. to 11:15 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7:45 a.m. to 11:15 p.m. on Saturdays. These hours were temporarily reduced back on January 10th of 2022 to be able to reduce fatigue on our existing MAPUS drivers and to address driver shortages that we were experiencing at that time. We are still currently ending at that 9:45 p.m. time. We are still experiencing driver shortages. Unfortunately, it wasn't as easily fixable as we were hoping back in January. So we're still continuing those hours to be able to provide more consistent service to our passengers, essentially just making sure that we have the drivers to be able to run the routes. So we don't have anybody out there stranded or inconsistent service from day to day. With that, we've had an opportunity to review that 9:45 p.m. end time, looking at a couple of factors such as current ridership information, looking at ridership from the last couple of years, and then a couple of other things such as business closing times along some of our routes, and kind of the structure of how the driver schedules are put together. And with that, we've come to the conclusion that we would like to extend temporary service hours by 30 minutes to end at a 10:15 p.m. time instead of that 9:45 time. I'll go over a couple of the things that we found here. The first one, many major retailers that we've noticed have been reducing their hours as well from the start of COVID, and again, due to general worker shortages. We see things like West Acres, Target, a lot of these major retail destinations closing earlier than they used to. The only major business that's open past 10 p.m. in general is Walmart, which closes at 11 p.m. But besides that, many other businesses, restaurants, that sort of thing are all closed by the time our suggested time, 10:15 p.m. would pass. Next slide, please. And this is just a graph to kind of show a bit of our ridership information. We dug back a bit to 2018 all the way through the year-to-date 2022, which was October 18th at the time that we pulled this. So as you can see, it is a fairly consistent trend throughout the years. We see ridership peaking up throughout the day, kind of maintaining a 3.5 to 4.5% of our total ridership from approximately, I'd say, 9 a.m. through about 5 p.m. And then after that point, you see that ridership does steadily decrease. Getting closer to the end times that we were taking a look at from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., we do see it steadily decreasing pretty drastically, down from 1% or less of our total ridership. Next slide, please. And then this is just breaking down our actual ridership for those times instead of just the percentages. Another general thing that we've seen throughout these years, looking back from 2018, is we have seen a general decrease in ridership. Ridership numbers have been extremely inconsistent due to COVID, us offering free rides for a period of time, reinstating fares. You just see kind of ups and downs in total ridership. But overall, there is a general decrease looking back from 2018 to 2019, pre-COVID, to where we're at today. And again, in 2022, this is just through October 18th, so the 2022 numbers aren't entirely comparable to previous years, but it just kind of gives a general idea of what we're looking at so far this year. Next slide, please. Another aspect that we looked at while we were evaluating ridership is taking a look at college routes. Majority of the NDSU specific routes, routes 31 through 36, all generally end by around 7 p.m. And with that, NDSU students don't necessarily have a lot of opportunity to be able to use the MapBest system past that time outside of our tap ride service running later at night, and then also Route 13, as you see here. Because of that, Route 13 is used fairly heavily by the NDSU student population, so we see a higher ridership percentage towards the end of the night compared to other routes for students who may want to get off campus to other destinations around the area. And then similar things to Route 2, which goes by MSUM, we see a higher ridership total towards the end of the night compared to our other core routes. Next slide, please. And then the last major point that we had with making these adjustments is to essentially try to make better schedules for our drivers. Extending our hours until 10:15 p.m. will create more consistent schedules for our nighttime drivers. Currently, because we are ending at 9:45, we don't have quite as consistent schedules. Some drivers will receive 8 hours, some drivers will receive 7 hours, and just kind of extending it slightly to create more desirable shifts, which we hope will also in turn attract more drivers to be able to fill those shifts, having consistent 40-hour work weeks and 8-hour days. So going forward, we are planning to evaluate these changes in 9 to 12 months, just to essentially review any ridership data that we get over the next year or so, taking an opportunity to get passenger feedback and driver input through surveys and driver meetings, that sort of thing, just to determine if these changes are beneficial to our riders, more or less, Just seeing if it's a positive change overall, and then based on the data input that we get at the time, we may make future adjustments going forward after that. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Cool. And hopefully you can still hear me. I've had to disconnect a couple of times, having connection problems here, but any questions for Cole?
Kevin, we do have a quorum now too. Gabriel Lomel from Concordia and Teresa Stolvis from M-State have joined us.
I do have a quick question. This is Stephen.
Okay, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of extended hours and stuff, whenever you have changes, it always takes public, general riders some time. Do we have data on, kind of how long it takes people to kind of get used to extended hours and say, okay, now it's time to, I know the bus is going to be there later. And it looked like 2018 there was, wasn't as much. I don't know when we last adjusted hours.
2017 is when we had, July of 2017 is when we added later night service. So yeah, I don't know how long it took to increase that, but I know after the first year of extended service, our ridership was up 25%.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, John Strand, I do have a question. And it's only just a detail, and I've communicated this with Julie and Jordan and so on, but have somebody reached out and was concerned that our schedules posted in all the bus stops are not current and accurate, and there's times people are sitting there waiting for buses that aren't running anymore. Are those posted times for the public updated now, or will they be?
Go ahead, Cole.
With these updated changes, we're planning to implement them on January 5th with First Transit's new driver schedule. And at that time, we are also planning to redo our maps, redo our timetables to reflect these changes. We also do have up-to-date information on our website with all of the service and route cuts, and we will be addressing that going forward.
Any other questions for Cole? Cole, have you gotten many, and I apologize, I had to disconnect, but did you get any comments from customers on the new hours or riders from the new hours as far as any major concerns, or has it been pretty quiet?
Generally, we haven't heard much since we did the initial hour change back in January. Overall, it hasn't affected a very large percentage of our rider population, and just kind of as time's gone on, people have just gotten used to it being kind of the new normal for MapBus. So not a whole lot.
Well, and we didn't, we did this as a temporary change, so this has not been vetted through the public hearing process or anything like that. Under our policy for route and service changes, administratively, we can make temporary changes based on things like staff shortages. And so we've used that element to change the hours this past year as the driver shortages have occurred. And I know as we get more drivers on board here, we really like to get the frequency back up. I know Fargo's frequency on some of the routes that, and we'll talk about ridership later, but I think it's important to get our frequency back up there for the daytime routes as a priority.
Well, and I know a lot of businesses are kind of going through the same thing where, grocery stores are closing earlier and restaurants are closing earlier, and everybody's kind of going through the same issues. But I think maybe making sure we just really keep an eye on, as you said, Lori, as we get more drivers to kind of get that back. I think it's really important for, obviously, to have ridership to be able to get home from work.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Okay, anything else for Cole on this update? All right, if hearing none, did I hear that we did get a quorum now?
Yes.
Okay, let's go back up to our action items. The first item is 2A, which is the minute meetings from September 28th, 2022. Hopefully you've had a chance to review those minutes. And if so, we'd entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
Mendoza
This is
move
Brad.
approval.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Maybe first.
I'll second Mendoza.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. All right, the next action item is Stu B, which was the selection of a vice chair. I'm not sure who was going to lead that discussion.
Well, this is Lori. At our last meeting, Kevin wasn't able to make it because we changed that meeting, and he's always, Kevin, you're always such a good chair. And here, in our bylaws, it says that when we need a vice chair, we can just elect it for that meeting. But we thought maybe it would be nice to do a selection or ask someone if they wanted to volunteer in that role moving forward.
Okay. Does any of the committee members, or maybe we want to give them some time to think about it, but does anybody at this point would like to serve in that role? The pay is great.
I called her pickup was set for BTC Maine this morning, and I was trying to clarify.
Well, hearing none, maybe what we'll do is we'll reach out to everybody next coming month and see if somebody be willing to do that. And I can certainly work with Ari too, and making sure that if I'm not going to be there, that we've got somebody kind of lined up ahead of time. But we'll reach out to some people during this next coming month and see if we can't find somebody that would like to serve in that role.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to action item 2C, the 2024 State of North Dakota Capital Grant applications. Julie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's the slide. Thank you. Within your packet, your full packet, the second from the last page is my memo that addresses this slide in more detail. But the crux of it is that every year the state of North Dakota makes funding available for capital grants. Nothing for operating, but for capital, they do make this available. This year, it's going to be about close to 13 million that they've got for us. So there's some idiosyncrasies with the way that the state and the feds and the local government what we have for fiscal years. So the state of North Dakota, their fiscal year starts in July and ends in June 30. So we are currently in 2023 as far as the state of North Dakota is concerned. We also are in 2023 as far as the federal government is concerned. That started October 1. But as far as the city of Fargo goes, we're not going to be there until January. So balancing all of these odd dates and everything, it is a little misleading, I guess is probably the right word. So that's why you see up here where it says City of Fargo Transit Department 2024 Capital State Grants. So what I did was I requested the local share for our 2023 City of Fargo fiscal year. And that's the amount you see over in the far column that's colored yellow. It's $822,400. That was approved for budget year City of Fargo 2023. So those funds will be available. That's a list of projects. So we're going to be replacing our scheduling software for both fixed route and paratransit. Excuse me. We have some miscellaneous support equipment that we're going to be looking to get. Our Toolcat, which is a non-service vehicle that we have a little bit of upgrading to do on the MTG Metro Transit Garage. We've been in this building since January of 2007, and we haven't really done anything, so we just need to update a few things. Our mobility manager, that is funded with capital and more head shares in the cost of that. So that would be for that position. We have a couple of buses to replace for fixed route and paratransit. When we redid the deck and the ground transportation center a year ago with all of the updates we did, we had one piece of the deck, the bus deck that the buses drive on, that needed to be finished to take down, strip it down, and resurface it. So that is what you see there for the GTC deck overlay. And then we have one supervisor vehicle that we would be replacing. So those are the grants that we'll be applying for with your authorization. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. The recommended action is there to recommend it to the Fargo City Commission to apply for these grants, and upon receipt of the funds, approve the grant execution. So happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Great questions for Julie. Julie, you mentioned the building since 2007. It seems like time's gone by fast, but what are some of the biggest, maybe the couple biggest needs that are, it's been quite a while since that building opened. What are a couple of the things that you're kind of planning to do with this grant?
Well, the initial phase of what we'd like to do is we've got to separate one of the larger offices, make it into two offices. We've got basic things like carpet needs to be replaced. We would love to have this be an expansion. That is not what this one is about, but hopefully eventually we can get that into play. But things like that that we need to update. And then there's some stuff out in the garage that we would like to do. Some of it is, we did a lighting project about a year and a half ago. And last year we did some work on the pit that we have here that the buses drive over and the technicians work on from underneath. So we've been doing piece by piece. This will also include replacement of our bus wash. So when the buses come in and every night they go through the wash, well, I take that back. It's not every night, but it's frequently they get washed. So things like that are what we're looking to replace. Jordan, did I miss anything? Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin. Yeah.
No, you pretty much did all the points that I pulled up from my spreadsheet here. So, just doing some updates and making sure that we're staying on top of things, so we're not in a position where something's breaking down and we're having to do emergency purchases or stuff like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Julie?
I have a quick question too. This all looks really good. This is a state grant. What are the, how competitive is this, or is this pretty not guaranteed, but is it pretty good that you get these funds?
Yes, it is almost guaranteed, but it's not 100%. But the competition for this money only comes from the 3 urban transit locations in the state of North Dakota. So it's Fargo, Bismarck, and Grand Forks. That's the only competition we have. And I know that Grand Forks had been asking for capital money to build a facility, and they did get awarded that in last year's go-around. So I think the odds of us getting everything we asked for are pretty high.
That's good.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Anything else for Julie? If not, we would entertain the recommended motion at the bottom of her slide.
I would make that motion.
With a first.
Second.
Yeah. Randall, second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the recommended motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion is passed. Next, we'll move up to action item 2D, which is a 2023 meeting schedule. Lori and Julie.
So I put the meeting dates up here. There is one correction. and September meeting, because we have a conference going on at the usual Wednesday, the third Wednesday of the month. It should be actually October 4th instead of October 5th. And I did check with the meeting room with Brian to make sure that it's available for that date. So these are the third Wednesdays of the month, every other month at 8, which is our usual meeting time. Julie and I talked about that January 18th is usually when we do all our annual reports, and our ridership data and things are still coming in. And so we're wondering if anyone would be interested in moving that to February so that we have all of our data available for those annual reports. So I'm looking for some input from the board on if that would work, because I know it's difficult when we move meetings.
Yeah, I would not be able to make that date, but certainly if we can get a quorum, it makes sense to move it.
Julie, maybe what you do, and Lori, is a doodle poll to see what might work for folks.
We can do that. Yeah.
Sure.
And Julie and Laura, are you thinking about going back to in-person meetings too, or you think it's still virtual? Or what are you thinking for next year?
We really hadn't talked about that piece of it, Mr. Chair. We'd welcome input. What do folks think? Would you rather meet in person, or does this work better?
I'm flexible either way.
Can we all meet in Vegas? Sorry, strike that from the record.
I'm there. I'm there, John. Yeah.
We can all maybe take a bus out here.
There you go.
For those that have to travel, to get to the meeting and the time it takes to travel back and forth, I mean, do you prefer virtual, or is it nice to be in person? We're open to either way.
Mm-hmm.
This is Annie. Virtual is nice for me because just sometimes I do have like a 9:00 meeting on campus. It's helpful to be able to tune in from wherever I'm at. I don't feel like I lose out on anything. You do a great job presenting, and I always share good information ahead of the meeting, so I feel like I can participate.
This is John. I'm very okay with virtual, but if people decide to meet in person, they could. But virtual works really well for me as well.
Okay. Well, it sounds like what the feedback is, we'll maybe continue on with the virtual until we do anything different. But it sounds like and I would agree, it's working fine.
Yeah, this is Steve. I was just going to ask if we've had better quorum since we went virtual versus in person. And I'm fine with either. There is some utility to be in person to see people, but
random receipts that may not have been.
Okay. Sorry.
Any other?
My feeling is that we have a better quorum virtually. We have had some, we've been able to meet quorum pretty well, unless we change our meeting date and, people just aren't, don't have a chance to know that in advance.
Yeah, I would agree, Lori. I think we've had a better quorum this last year.
Well, we'll do the doodle poll on meeting for February and find out when the room's available for having a virtual meeting. And so we don't need to do a recommended action this time. Just wanted to get those dates out there for people on their calendars so that we could, we get that secure time on your calendars.
Sounds good. Well, we'll follow up with that, and let's move on. I think we still need to go back to our informational items. We had 3B, which is the September through October 2022 operations report. Cole and Lori.
Thank you. Would it be possible to pull up the informational items slide? Perfect. Thank you. So taking a look at the Fargo routes, we have a bit of a mix here in terms of increases and decreases in ridership. As Lori had mentioned before, we had reduced some frequency on our routes. Those routes were Route 11, Route 13, Route 14, and Route 15. And as you can see, all of those routes do have decreases. It's fairly safe to assume that's just for passengers who aren't able to utilize the routes as much as they were before, so they're finding either other means of transportation or taking a look at other routes. I will also mention that Route 15 was dealing with a lot of construction this last summer, so a lot of riders who were utilizing Route 15 in the past utilized Route 16 to be able to get from the Ground Transportation Center hub to West Acres as more or less their major destination. And that's where we see a very steep increase in Route 16 too. Taking a look at some of the other routes that we have, Route 17 and 18 also saw fairly substantial increases, just more or less returning back to pre-COVID numbers, hopefully. Routes 20 and 24, 20 saw a slight decrease while 24 maintained ridership numbers from 21 compared to 22. Link FM was down a considerable amount. We had only a couple of events that we serviced this last year and the year before, the major one being the street fair, which we did see a slight decrease in ridership this year compared to last year with Link FM's usage for that. The Industrial Park tap ride service that we offer did see a substantial increase. More and more we are seeing different riders and businesses utilize that service. We've definitely seen a lot of that ridership come back since COVID. We saw a drop off fairly steeply then, but it's nice to see that people are taking advantage of that in Industrial Park. Paratransit's a bit of an interesting story. With that, we saw a increase of 6.44%. In 2021, we did see a steep increase in paratransit usage compared to previous years, and in 2022, we are seeing that trend continue. We will be kind of digging into that a bit more in the upcoming months to kind of try to analyze that ridership and see where that's coming from in terms of people who are approved for the service and just kind of what they're utilizing it for. Then taking a look at the college routes for NDSU, we see a substantial increase in all of those routes. As I've spoken about previously in other MAP board meetings, last year there weren't quite as many in-person classes, and as we kind of transition back into that, we're seeing the student population go back to utilizing our services and seeing ridership increase. So next year, I believe we will be able to get more consistent numbers and more accurate ridership data for those routes. But as of right now, it's just nice to see that we're getting ridership back in those areas. Next slide, please.
So in Moorhead, as you can see, the college routes, Route 1 is through Concordia and Route 2 through MSUM, the ridership is up. Route 3, which services M-State and East Moorhead, is down, but that route has been a substantial detour for a very long period of time. That's the route that uses the 21st Street grade separation, and that project, you know, has had a detour going on for almost 3 years. That's now open, but now we have another detour on 12th Avenue South and 20th Street, and we're hoping that should open this next week, right before Thanksgiving. So hopefully Route 3 will get back on its normal track. Route 4 is our shopping route, the one that goes through downtown into Target and Walmart Cashwise. I'm surprised to see that down a little bit. But, you know, it may be the early closure as well. So, you know, 11:15 versus 9:45 that you're seeing reflected there. Route 5 is the route that goes south of the interstate, and that is down a little bit. And then Route 6 is Dilworth. That one's down a little bit. Route 9 is it's our lowest usage route, but it is starting to get a little of an increase. And Route 9 serves the southeast Moorhead area of Menards and Sanford, and in that area. So, and, they're starting to get a little bit back from ridership in 2022, and I think the college students coming back and riding more, you'll see a significant change as we get further into the winter months. Next slide, please.
Sort of as I touched on before, we can kind of see that trend of college students returning to utilizing our services essentially across the board. NDSU especially, since we have so many NDSU-focused routes, has seen the largest increase. But you also do see increases in all the Moorhead colleges as well, ranging from 46 to approximately 55% increase. So, like I said, I think we'll get to more consistent ridership numbers next year and be able to judge that a bit more accurately. The only college that we did see a decrease in was NDFCS of about 60 or so riders. But besides that, we are seeing pretty substantial increases.
Cole, question for you. Obviously, like you said, with the pandemic, these numbers are hard to analyze. But are you hearing anything with the increased gas prices impacting ridership at all, or any from comments of people maybe looking at some alternative transportation with increased fuel prices?
Yeah, we have received a few comments on that. Again, it's just kind of difficult to gauge the ridership because of pre and in COVID numbers to be able to determine if that's why we're seeing an increase or if it's just general, just our general riders returning to more leisurely travel, that sort of thing.
Generally, when we have a price increase in gas, we do see a flux of riders. But as Cole said, it's just a different environment right now, so it's hard to gauge.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide, please. Senior Ride continues to increase, as does Paratransit. These are our door-to-door services. This one is for seniors 60 and older in Moorhead and Dilworth. And we're seeing a lot more people choose to make those kinds of trips. And I think we're going to see, and Julie and I were talking about this the other day, our aging senior population. I think we're going to see that Paratransit and Senior Ride are going to continue to grow, and that we'll have to, watch that carefully to make sure that we can meet demand.
All right. Any other updates, or any questions for Cole and Lori? Okay. Any other business from any of the members? All right. And so our next schedule is we'll get back to you then in January, February. That would be our next meeting? Nothing else this fall or next month?
Yeah, that's right.
Correct. Okay. Well, if hearing no other business, hope everyone has a good Thanksgiving week next week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, everybody.
Thank you.